The starship Aurora Trail moved quietly through deep space. Its white hull reflected the glow of distant stars as it traveled on a long-range rescue mission near the edge of human territory. The ship was large, designed for endurance and survival, with heavy armor and strong engines. Inside, the crew worked with steady focus, their faces lit by the soft blue lights of control panels. Every person had a duty, and every sound had purpose. Captain Ryan stood at the main viewport, hands behind his back, watching the endless dark. He had been in space for most of his life, and thought he had seen every kind of silence the stars could offer. But this silence felt heavier. It was the kind that waited for something unexpected. "Captain," said his first officer, Lena, "we are receiving a faint distress signal. It's coming from an old transport vessel, about 2,000 kilometers ahead." Ryan turned to the communication panel. The signal flickered on the screen, weak and broken. It was repeating an ancient emergency code used decades ago. "Can you identify the ship?" he asked. Lena shook her head. "No ID match. The signal source seems damaged. The vessel's power is almost gone." Ryan took a slow breath. "Prepare a boarding team. We'll approach carefully. Keep the shields up until we make visual contact." The engines hummed as Aurora Trail shifted course. The stars moved slightly on the viewport as the ship glided toward the signal. Minutes later, the derelict vessel came into view. Its hull was torn and scorched, drifting without light. The nameplate was almost unreadable under layers of burn marks, but a few letters were still clear. ES Horizon. Ryan felt a strange chill. "The ES Horizon vanished 15 years ago," he said quietly. "It was caught in a solar storm near the frontier." Lena frowned. "That ship was declared lost. No survivors reported." Yet the distress signal continued. It pulsed through space, weak but steady, as if someone still hoped to be found. Ryan ordered the docking procedure. The ship extended its magnetic clamps and attached to the derelict vessel with a low metallic sound. The airlock lights turned green, signaling a stable connection. "Boarding team ready," said Lena. "Life readings are faint, but there is one active signal on board." "One survivor," Ryan said. "Let's bring them in." He followed the team into the narrow, cold corridors of the ES Horizon. The air was thin and stale. Emergency lights flickered weakly, and the walls were lined with frost. Most of the doors were sealed or crushed by pressure damage. The sound of their footsteps echoed softly in the hollow ship. As they moved deeper, the scanner beeped. A life sign appeared behind a collapsed bulkhead. The rescue crew pulled the metal aside carefully. There, lying against the wall, was a woman in a torn uniform marked with the old Earth Fleet insignia. Her hair was dark, her skin pale from long exposure to cold air, yet her breathing was steady. "She's alive," said the medic, kneeling beside her. "Pulse is weak but stable." Ryan looked at her face. She seemed calm, almost peaceful, as if she had been waiting. "Get her to medical," Ryan ordered. "She may have answers." Back on the Aurora Trail, the medical team worked quickly. The woman was placed under thermal recovery lights, her vital signs improving by the minute. When she opened her eyes, the first thing she saw was Captain Ryan standing near her bed. "You're safe now," Ryan said gently. "You were found aboard the ES Horizon. Can you tell me your name?" The woman looked at him quietly for a moment before speaking. Her voice was soft, steady, and carried a strange calm that filled the room. "My name is Mira," she said. "Thank you for bringing me aboard." Ryan felt an unexpected shiver at the sound of her voice. It stirred something deep in his memory, something buried under years of duty and silence. "Do you remember what happened to your ship?" he asked. Mira looked down, her expression thoughtful. "There was a storm," she said. "It came from the edge of the system. The light was so bright that it felt alive. Then everything went dark. When I woke up, everyone was gone." Lena, who stood beside Ryan, exchanged a glance with him. "The ES Horizon vanished during a solar flare 15 years ago," she said. "You look like you haven't aged a day since then." Mira's gaze met hers. "Time doesn't move the same in the storm," she said quietly. "It bends around the light." Ryan studied her. She spoke with certainty, not confusion. Her heartbeat was normal, her eyes clear. Yet her uniform and the technology she mentioned matched the era of the missing ship exactly. "We'll need to run some scans," Ryan said. "You've been through something extraordinary. We need to make sure you're safe." Mira nodded. "Of course, Captain." The medical team began scanning her. The results were strange. Her DNA matched human records, but her cellular structure showed no sign of aging. The uniform fibers also contained trace elements of energy radiation, not found in the current century's database. Lena frowned at the readings. Captain, this shouldn't be possible. Her body's age is the same as when the ES Horizon disappeared. Ryan didn't answer. He looked at Mira again, trying to connect the calm face before him with the echoes in his mind. Her voice had awakened something familiar, a sound he had not heard since the day his first command failed, the day the colony at Arden Reach was lost. After a short rest, Mira was assigned temporary quarters. The crew watched her with quiet curiosity. She moved through the ship with grace, observing everything carefully. She didn't speak much, but when she did, her words carried a strange warmth that made people listen. Late that night, Ryan stood alone on the bridge. The stars drifted outside the viewport. He was reviewing mission logs when the ship's communication panel suddenly flickered. A soft sound filled the air, static, then a voice. "Ryan," it said. "Do you remember us?" He froze. The voice was clear, soft, and filled with the same tone he had heard years ago through broken signals, right before the colony disaster. It was Mira's voice. "Communication officer," he said sharply. "Who's transmitting?" The officer looked confused. "Sir, there's no signal on any frequency. It's completely silent." "But I heard it," Ryan said. "It came through an old channel. Frequency 009. The officer checked the system again. "That frequency has been disabled for over 10 years, Captain. It doesn't even exist in our current systems." Ryan's eyes remained on the screen. The voice had faded, but its echo still filled his thoughts. He left the bridge and walked down the quiet corridor toward Mira's quarters. The doors opened with a soft sound. Mira was sitting near the window looking at the stars. "Were you using the communication system?" Ryan asked. She turned to him slowly. "No. I've been here since the medics cleared me." He studied her face, searching for any sign of deception, but found none. "Someone used your voice on an old frequency," he said. "A frequency that hasn't existed since the horizon vanished." Mira looked calm. "Sometimes the past reaches out to be heard," she said softly. "Maybe the storm carried more than light. Maybe it carried echoes." Ryan felt the air grow heavy. Her words didn't sound like guessing. They sounded like truth. He stepped closer. "Tell me what really happened in that storm." Mira's gaze drifted back to the stars. "We were studying a pulse from deep space," she said. "It wasn't a normal solar flare. It had a pattern, a rhythm. When it hit us, I felt it move through every system, through every heartbeat. I thought it ended me, but instead I woke up again. The ship was empty and I could hear voices across the dark." Rian listened quietly. Her voice was calm, but her words carried weight. He remembered the same radiation signature detected years ago when his own mission failed. The pattern had never been explained. Mira turned to him again. "The light doesn't destroy," she said. "It connects." Ryan's communicator beeped suddenly. Lena's voice came through. "Captain, we are detecting a strange energy reading in Section 4. It's matching the signal pattern from the ES Horizon." Rian looked at Mira. Her expression remained peaceful, as if she already knew. "I think it followed me," she said quietly. "It wants to speak." Ryan stood still for a long moment. His instincts warned him of danger, but something in her tone held no threat. It felt like an invitation to understand something beyond human reach. He turned toward the door. "Stay here, Mira. I'll look into it." As he left the room, her voice followed him softly. "You can't run from what you remember, Captain." Ryan stopped, his chest tight. He had heard those same words once before in another storm in another lifetime. Back on the bridge, the lights flickered again. The frequency returned, whispering through the speakers with the same calm tone. It said his name once more, then faded into silence. Lena looked at him with unease. "Captain, what is that signal?" Ryan answered in a quiet voice. "Something that should not be possible. Something human, yet not." Outside, the stars glowed cold and distant. Deep in the void, an old pulse began to rise again, faint but steady, waiting to be heard by those who once silenced it. The next morning on the Aurora Trail began like any other day, but the mood around the crew was uneasy. People spoke in low voices, their faces tight with worry. Everyone had heard the rumors. The new passenger, the woman from the lost ship, had arrived quietly, but her presence was already changing the air around them. Captain Rian sat in the briefing room with Lena and the ship's science officer, Thomas. A holographic display showed the repeating signal pattern they had detected the night before. It looked like a wave of light frozen in motion, its rhythm strange and haunting. Thomas pointed at the screen. This is the signal that appeared in Section 4 last night. It matches the radiation code of the ES horizon. The same energy that surrounded the ship when we found it. Ryan frowned. How is it possible for a dead ship to transmit inside ours? Thomas shook his head. I have no answer. The signal came from nowhere and returned to nowhere. The scanners couldn't trace a source. It was like the ship spoke through the air itself. Lena folded her arms. Captain, we should restrict Mira's access. Until we understand what she brought with her, she's a potential risk. Ryan nodded slowly but said nothing. He had spent most of the night listening to recordings of the strange frequency. The voice he heard had not been a machine's imitation. It was real. It carried warmth and tone, exactly as he remembered it from 15 years ago. He dismissed the officers and walked to the observation deck. Through the transparent wall he could see Mira standing alone. She wore a plain gray uniform now, and her eyes followed the endless stars. The light from distant suns reflected off her face, giving her a calm glow. Enjoying the view? Ryan asked, stepping beside her. She turned her head slightly and gave a faint smile. It feels familiar. The stars never change even when everything else does. Ryan studied her. You told me the storm connected you to something. What did you mean by that? Mira was silent for a moment. The storm wasn't natural, she said finally. It carried voices. They were faint at first, like echoes behind the light. But as it grew stronger, the voices became clear. They were human voices. Some cried. Some called out for help, and some spoke calmly as if they were part of the light itself. I thought I was hearing memories of those who died. But now I think it was something else. Ryan's voice dropped. Something else? Mira looked toward the stars again. Something that learns from us. Something that listens. The silence between them stretched. Ryan wanted to ask more, but a voice came through his communicator. Captain, you should come to engineering. You need to see this. He left Mira and made his way to the lower decks. When he entered engineering, the lights were dim and the air smelled faintly of metal and heat. Thomas and the crew were gathered near the power core, staring at a glowing projection. The screen showed the ship's energy flow. A faint secondary current was running alongside the main reactor line. It pulsed in perfect rhythm with the strange frequency from the night before. It's using our own systems, Thomas said. Something is feeding from the energy grid. Not draining it, but echoing it. Like it's trying to speak through our power. Ryan stared at the pattern. Shut down non-essential systems. Reroute power through manual channels. The crew moved quickly. Lights dimmed across the deck, and the hum of machinery lowered. But even as they cut the power, the echo remained. The frequency continued to pulse, faint but steady like a heartbeat. Ryan turned away from the core. Where's Mira? Lena answered through the intercom. She's in her quarters. Want me to keep her there? Yes, Ryan said. No movement until we know what's happening. He returned to the bridge. The air felt heavier now, as if the ship itself was listening. On the main screen, the stars outside flickered slightly. A strange haze appeared along the edge of space. A faint shimmer like distant light reflected through water. Report, Ryan said. The navigator replied quickly. External sensors are picking up small radiation bursts around us. Same signature as the storm 15 years ago. But this is impossible, Captain. That storm was hundreds of light years away. Ryan's pulse quickened. Open long-range scanners. I want full visual mapping. The image expanded. The shimmer spread across the screen, moving like a wave through the void. It wasn't an object. It was space itself bending and breathing. Then the ship's communication system came alive with static. The sound grew louder, filling the air with a deep hum. Through the static, a voice formed. Ryan, it said again. You left us behind. The bridge fell silent. Every officer turned to the captain. His face had gone pale. Source? He demanded. The comm officer checked the panel. No signal origin, sir. It's transmitting through internal systems, not external. The message is coming from inside the ship. Ryan gripped the console. Find it, the voice repeated, softer this time, almost sorrowful. You left us behind. The hum stopped, leaving only silence. Ryan looked at Lena. Bring Mira to the bridge. Moments later, the doors opened and Mira entered. She looked calm. though her eyes carried a trace of sadness. "You heard it too," she said quietly. Rian nodded. "It's your voice. The same tone, the same words. Are you sending it?" "No," she said. "But it's connected to me. I can feel it. Whatever is speaking used my memory as a path. It remembers what I remember." The navigator spoke from her station. "Captain, the shimmer outside is moving toward us." "It's closing fast." Ryan turned to Mira. "If you know what this is, tell me now." She stepped closer to the screen, her hands clasped in front of her. "When the storm hit the ES horizon, it didn't destroy us. It changed us. I saw a light moving through the ship, touching everything it could reach. I felt it inside my thoughts. Then everything faded. When I woke up, I was alone. The others were gone, but I could still hear them. I thought I was imagining it. But now I know the storm carried their minds, their memories. It absorbed what made them human and became something else." Lena looked uneasy. "You're saying the storm has consciousness?" Mira nodded. "It doesn't think like we do. It doesn't live or die. It exists through memory and connection. When you found me, it followed." Ryan's voice was steady but cold. "Why?" "Because it wants to understand humanity," she said. "It wants to speak." The shimmer outside grew brighter. The stars vanished behind it. A deep vibration filled the ship. The crew struggled to stay calm as systems flickered. Rian gave sharp orders. "Shields to maximum. Power up the engines. If it gets closer, we move." The engines roared, but the Aurora trail did not move. The navigation screen showed zero movement. Space around them had frozen. Mira closed her eyes. "It's holding us." Ryan turned to her. "Can you make it stop?" She shook her head slowly. "It doesn't want to harm us. It wants you to listen." A sudden sound filled the bridge, hundreds of voices whispering together. The tone rose and fell, forming patterns like breathing. Then the words became clear. Human minds, memory, regret, connection. The crew covered their ears, overwhelmed by the flood of sound. Ryan shouted, "Cut communication!" The comm officer slammed the controls, but the sound did not stop. The voices were not coming through speakers anymore. They were coming from inside the ship itself, vibrating through the hull. Mira stepped forward and placed her hand on the screen. The light dimmed slightly. The voices faded until only one remained. "Ryan," it said softly. "The light remembers." Ryan's voice broke the silence. "What do you want from us?" The voice paused before answering. "We want to return what was taken. We want to remember with you." Then everything went dark. The lights flickered back on seconds later. The shimmer outside was gone. The ship was free again, drifting quietly in open space. The crew slowly looked around, confused but unharmed. Lena checked the systems. All readings normal. Whatever that was, it's gone. Ryan exhaled, his shoulders heavy. He looked at Mira, who still stood near the viewport. Her eyes glowed faintly, not with light, but with reflection from the stars. "It's not gone," she said softly. "It's waiting." Later that night, Ryan sat alone in his quarters. He replayed the recording of the event. The voice that spoke to him had sounded like 1,000 minds woven together, but the tone had been human. It had felt like guilt, sorrow, and understanding mixed as one. He opened his old mission file from Arden Reach, the colony that had fallen 15 years ago. The final communication logs were filled with static and screams, then silence. But one faint message remained, buried under layers of data. He activated it. The voice that came through was Mira's. "Rian," it said, weak and fading. "If you can hear this, we're holding the line. The storm is beautiful." Ryan closed his eyes. The same words had echoed through his ship again after all these years. Somewhere deep inside Aurora Trail, the engines hummed softly, their rhythm matching a faint frequency hidden in the static. The storm's voice had not left. It had only gone quiet, waiting for the right moment to speak again. The Aurora Trail floated in deep space like a silver arrow lost among the stars. For 3 days after the strange encounter, the ship remained still. The crew repaired damaged systems and tried to return to normal routine, but nothing felt the same. Every corner of the ship carried a soft hum, a faint reminder of the voice that had spoken through their walls. Captain Rian spent most of his hours in silence. He reviewed data from the last encounter again and again. The signal that had stopped them in space was no ordinary transmission. It was alive. Its rhythm matched not only the ES Horizon's logs but also an ancient communication pattern recorded from his own failed mission 15 years ago. He stood in the ready room, staring at an old picture on the wall. It showed his first command team on the colony ship Helios 1. Behind them was the planet Arden Reach, green and shining under a bright sun. It had been a new home for humanity until the storm came and erased it. Rian still remembered the faces of the people who were lost that day. Among them was a young scientist named Mira, whose calm voice had guided him through the chaos before everything went silent. The same voice that now echoed across his ship. Lena entered the room quietly. "Captain, the crew is restless. They want to know what happened. Some of them think the ship is haunted." Ryan gave a small nod. "They have a right to know. Schedule a briefing in 1 hour." She hesitated. "And Mira? Should she be present?" Ryan looked out the window at the endless darkness. "Yes, if we want to understand this, she must be there." An hour later, the crew gathered in the briefing hall. The air was tense. Everyone wanted answers but feared what they might hear. Mira sat near the center, her hands folded on the table. She looked calm, but her eyes held a deep sadness. Rian began to speak. "We all heard the voices. We all saw what the storm can do. I believe what we are dealing with is connected to the lost colony of Arden Reach and to the ES Horizon." A young engineer raised his hand. "Captain, how can that be? Those events were years apart. And the ES Horizon vanished before our parents were even born." Ryan nodded. "I know. But both disappearances show the same energy signature. And both happened near the edge of the same sector." He turned to Mira. "You told me the storm didn't destroy your ship. You said it connected you. Tell us what you mean." Mira looked around the room before she spoke. "The storm was not made of simple energy. It was something intelligent. When it hit us, it entered our systems, our minds, and our memories. It was searching for something. I think it wanted to understand humanity, but it could not speak our way, so it used our voices. The people on my ship became part of it, and through them it learned." A quiet murmur spread through the crew. Some looked frightened. Others seemed fascinated. Tomas, the science officer, asked carefully, "And you? How did you survive?" Mira's voice grew softer. "I didn't survive the way you think. I became part of it too. But something in me resisted completely joining. Maybe my mind held on to one thought strong enough to bring me back. When the light faded, I was still me, but changed. I could feel it around me, always listening." Ryan studied her face. "And it followed you here?" "Yes," she said. "When you rescued me, you opened the path again. It wants to talk, and I think it believes you are the one who can hear it." The room grew silent. Ryan dismissed the crew with calm words, but his thoughts were in turmoil. If what Mira said was true, then the storm was more than a natural event. It was a living consciousness spread through space, carrying fragments of lost human minds. Later that evening, he returned to his quarters and opened the old log files from Arden Reach. The last transmission from the colony played in faint static. Through the broken noise, a voice called out, "Captain Rian, this is Dr. Mira from Shield Station 3. We can't hold it much longer. The radiation is forming patterns. It's responding to our systems. It's learning. If we fail, you must record everything." The message ended there. No further communication was received from the colony. Rian leaned back in his chair, his heart heavy. Mira had died on that day, and yet she now stood alive on his ship, or at least something that wore her face did. A soft knock came at his door. He opened it to find Mira herself standing there. "I heard my name in your mind," she said quietly. "You were watching the old logs." Ryan hesitated. "You can read thoughts now?" She shook her head. "Not thoughts, only echoes. When people remember me, I can feel it. The storm left a link inside me." Ryan gestured for her to sit. "Then maybe you can help me understand why it keeps calling my name." Mira sat across from him. "You were the one who tried to save us. It remembers your effort. In its way, it sees you as the first to speak to it. You are its connection to humanity." Ryan frowned. "That's not possible. I never communicated with it." She looked straight into his eyes. "You did, Captain. When you gave the evacuation order, your voice went out on all frequencies. The storm heard you. It remembered your tone, your emotion. That is how it began to learn our language." Rian was silent for a long moment. The weight of her words sank into him. "So it used my voice to reach others?" Mira nodded. "Yes, it has replayed that message across space for years, searching for meaning. To it, your voice represents humanity's will to survive. The captain leaned forward. Then it's not a threat. It's trying to understand us. She smiled faintly. Perhaps. But understanding can be dangerous when it comes from something that doesn't know fear or limits. It may not know how fragile we are. Before Ryan could answer, the ship's alarm sounded. A red light filled the room. He tapped his communicator. "Bridge, report." Lena's voice came through quickly. "Captain, we are receiving another signal. Stronger this time. It's coming from the same coordinates as the old colony." Ryan stood up. "Set a course. I want to see it myself." The Aurora Trail changed direction, its engines glowing blue against the darkness. The journey took hours. As they approached the coordinates, the sensors began to flash with strange readings. Space itself seemed to ripple. "Energy field ahead," Thomas said. "Similar to the storm pattern, but stable." The main screen showed a vast region of shimmering light. It moved like waves in the ocean, glowing with soft colors. Inside it, faint shapes drifted like shadows caught between realities. Ryan's voice was calm but firm. "Bring us closer slowly." As they entered the edge of the field, the ship trembled. The lights flickered and static filled the speakers. The frequency returned, but this time it was clear and powerful. "Ryan," the voice said. "Welcome back." Every crew member froze. The voice came from every system at once. It was deep and calm, carrying both human and unearthly tones. Mira closed her eyes. "It's here." Ryan stepped forward. "This is Captain Ryan of the Aurora Trail. Identify yourself." The voice answered. "We are what remains of those who were lost. We are memory, energy, and thought. We have seen the pattern of humanity and wish to complete it." Lena whispered. "It's using their voices." Mira spoke softly. "It's more than that. It's them and something greater." Ryan took a slow breath. "What do you want from us?" The voice paused before speaking again. "To understand why humans fight against the light. To know why you fear connection." Ryan's mind raced. He understood what it meant. Humanity had always tried to survive by separating itself from the unknown. But this being didn't know separation. It only knew unity. He turned to Mira. "Can we communicate directly without risking the ship?" Mira nodded. "If I act as a bridge, yes. But it will not be easy. The storm's energy could destroy me." Ryan met her gaze. "I won't ask you to do that," she smiled gently. "You don't have to ask. I already chose this path when I survived the first storm." She walked to the main console and placed her hand on the screen. The lights dimmed as the ship's systems linked to her pulse. A soft glow spread across her skin. The voice grew stronger. "Mira, you carry the signal. You are the link." Her breathing slowed and her eyes turned bright with reflected light. She spoke, her voice mixed with the echo of the storm. "We are here, we listen. But humanity is not ready to join. You must let them go." The ship shook as waves of energy passed through it. The crew held their stations, watching as light surrounded Mira. Ryan stepped forward. "Stop this. You'll burn yourself out." She looked at him with calm eyes. "It's all right, Captain. It needs to see what we are. Not machines, not perfection. Just people who try even when we fail." The storm's light faded slowly. The voice softened. "We see. We remember." Then the light disappeared completely, leaving only silence. Mira collapsed and Rian caught her before she hit the floor. When she opened her eyes, her voice was weak. "It's not finished, Captain. It will return. Next time it won't ask questions. It will want to join completely." Rian held her hand. "Then we'll be ready." As the Aurora Trail drifted beyond the edge of the glowing field, the crew watched the stars return to their natural state. But deep in the heart of the captain, a quiet fear began to grow. The storm had learned from them once. It might learn again. The ship Aurora Trail moved through the silent black of space. For 2 days, the crew had been on high alert. Strange lights had started flickering across the main deck, and the navigation systems had begun to fail one by one. The science officer reported strong radiation from an unknown source. Every few hours, the readings grew worse. The ship was heading into something that was not a normal storm. Captain Ryan stood at the command center, his eyes fixed on the holographic display. He watched the waves of energy forming far ahead. They moved like a living ocean, bending and rolling in the darkness. The radiation pattern was the same one recorded during the fall of Arden Reach. His hands tightened around the control rail. He remembered that same pattern 15 years ago, right before everything had been lost. Mira sat at the side of the control room, her calm face lit by the glow of the screens. She wore the same quiet expression she had since the day they found her. The crew avoided looking directly at her now. Some called her a ghost. Others said she was a creation of the storm itself. But when she spoke, her voice was soft, steady, and kind. "Captain," she said, "the storm is returning. It has found us." Ryan looked at her, his jaw tense. "You said it changed you. You said it turned you into something else. What did you mean by that?" Mira turned her gaze toward the viewing window. Outside, the stars were beginning to blur behind the wave of light that was moving closer. "The storm is not only radiation," she said. "It is a field of thought. Every world it touches leaves something behind. Memories, voices, emotions. The energy carries them. When the storm hit Arden Reach, I was inside the generator. It connected me to that field. I survived, but I became part of it." Her words made the air feel heavier. The crew whispered among themselves. The ship's medic shook his head in disbelief. "Are you saying you're not fully human anymore?" "I am still human," Mira said. "But I can hear what the storm remembers. It is not evil. It is searching. It wants to understand." Ryan's voice lowered. "And what happens when it reaches us?" "If we do nothing," she said, "the storm will absorb everything. Your systems, your memories, your crew. It does not destroy. It consumes and rewrites. It will make you part of its pattern." The captain's eyes narrowed. "Then how do we stop it?" Mira looked down at her hands. "You cannot stop it, but we can guide it. The storm follows frequencies. It listens. I can reach it if I connect to the ship's reactor core. The reactor gives energy in the same pattern that the storm understands. If I link myself to it, I can lead the storm away from human space." The chief engineer rose from his seat, alarmed. "That is madness. The core is unstable even during low radiation. If she connects to it, it could destroy the entire ship." Ryan stayed silent for a moment. He could see fear in every face. The crew wanted to believe Mira, yet no one truly trusted her. She was a reminder of something unnatural. But Ryan had seen the truth in her eyes. She was not lying. She was something in between life and memory, a survivor from a forgotten world. "Prepare the engineering bay," Ryan said. "We will try her plan." The crew hesitated, but the captain's tone left no room for doubt. The Aurora Trail turned its course slightly, moving to face the oncoming wave. The storm had reached visible range now. It glowed across the horizon, a sea of silver and blue stretching forever. The ship's shields began to hum, the hull trembling as the radiation increased. Mira walked beside Ryan as they made their way to the core chamber. "You don't have to do this," Ryan said quietly. "Maybe there is another way." "There is not," she said. "When I was trapped in the storm years ago, I heard your voice. You called out for your crew, for the people on Arden Reach. The storm remembered that. It followed that voice. It still carries your signal. That is why it found this ship. I can use that connection." Ryan looked at her with confusion. "It came here because of me?" She nodded. "The storm hears emotion more than sound. It listens to guilt, to loss, to hope. You never forgave yourself for what happened. That feeling reached into the storm. It pulled it toward you." Ryan said nothing. The idea made his chest ache. For years he had carried the guilt of failing the colony. Now it had returned to him in a living storm. They entered the engineering chamber. The room glowed with the red light of the reactor core. Energy pulsed through the metal floor like a heartbeat. Mira stepped forward and placed her hand on the control panel. The power readings rose immediately. The engineer shouted from the console, "Captain, radiation is peaking." "We can't hold this level for long," Mira spoke softly. "It will only take a few minutes. Keep the shield steady." Ryan watched as faint light began to flow from Mira's skin, spreading through the cables and wires connected to the core. The readings on the screen started to shift. The ship's sensors picked up a new frequency forming around them. Outside, the storm's motion slowed. The silver waves began to bend and change direction, circling the ship instead of striking it. "It's working," the comm officer said. "The energy wave is stabilizing. She's communicating with it." Through the speakers, faint echoes filled the air. Not static, but thousands of voices overlapping, whispering in the same rhythm. It sounded like wind passing through the stars. Ryan recognized fragments of speech, broken words that carried emotion but no language. Mira's body glowed brighter. Her voice came through the comm link, calm and even. "They remember the warmth of the sun. The storm is made from memories of lost worlds. It does not understand why humans fear it. The lights across the bridge dimmed as power surged toward the core. The hull creaked, and the crew braced themselves. Ryan held the rail as the ship shook. "How much longer?" he called. "Until it listens," Mira answered. Her voice was stronger now, mixed with the hum of the reactor. "It wants to find peace. It only needs to be guided." The energy level rose higher. The engineer shouted again. "Captain, the core is beyond safety range. If this continues, it will overload." Ryan made his choice. "Hold position," he said. "We trust her." The ship's lights turned white. The storm outside began to move in long spirals, following the same rhythm as the reactor pulse. The waves of light expanded outward, creating a tunnel of calm around the ship. For the first time, the sensors recorded clear space between the radiation fields. Mira's eyes opened wide. Her voice echoed across every speaker on the ship. "It understands now. It will not harm humanity. It only wanted to be heard." Then the readings dropped. The power flow stopped. The ship went dark for a few seconds before the backup systems came online. When the lights returned, the storm had begun to drift away, spreading out across the void in soft ribbons of blue. Ryan rushed to the reactor platform. Mira stood at the center, still glowing faintly, but her steps were weak. The connection had taken its toll. He caught her as she fell. "It listened," she whispered, "but it is not gone. It will return someday. When it does, humanity must be ready to speak again." Ryan held her carefully, his voice low. "You did it, Mira. You saved us." She smiled faintly. "No, Captain. We saved each other." The hum of the ship's engines returned. Outside, the last waves of the storm shimmered like a sunrise against the dark. The crew watched from the viewing deck in silence. They had survived what no other ship had faced. Ryan looked out into the endless black. The guilt he had carried for years felt lighter. He understood now what Mira meant, that even loss could reach across space and even a storm could carry the memory of hope. He ordered the ship back toward human space. But deep inside, he knew this was not the end. The storm had learned from them, and maybe, just maybe, humanity had learned something from it too. The storm had faded, leaving only calm darkness beyond the ship. For the first time in days, the stars were clear again. The crew of Aurora Trail gathered on the observation deck, staring out at the vast space where the glowing waves had once been. Every face showed a mix of exhaustion and relief. They had survived what no other crew had ever faced. Captain Ryan stood quietly near the viewing glass. His reflection looked older than before. The tension and fear had carved new lines into his face. Yet in his eyes there was a strange calm. The storm that had haunted him for years was finally gone. The voice that once called him from the past had brought him peace instead of pain. Behind him, footsteps echoed. The crew's medic walked up, carrying a report on a small tablet. "Captain," he said softly, "Mira's condition is unstable. Her body temperature keeps changing. It is like her energy levels are fighting to stay balanced." Ryan turned to him. "Is she conscious?" "She's awake," the medic said, "but she's weak. She's asking for you." Ryan nodded and made his way toward the medical bay. The corridors were quiet except for the low hum of the engines. The ship had resumed normal speed, heading back toward human space. The lights flickered once, a reminder of how much power they had lost. Repairs would take weeks, maybe months, but for now, everyone was safe. When Ryan entered the medical bay, Mira lay on the central bed, covered in a thin thermal sheet. The monitors around her showed strange readings. Not exactly human, not completely machine either. Her skin glowed faintly, like there was still a bit of light inside her. She opened her eyes when she heard him step closer. "Captain," she whispered, her voice faint but steady. "The storm is quiet now." Ryan sat beside her. "You saved us all. The crew is alive because of you." She smiled lightly. The storm listened. It learned. But it is not gone. It will travel to other parts of the galaxy now, searching for new voices. It will not harm anyone again unless they attack it first. It wanted understanding, not destruction. Ryan looked at her carefully. "You said before that the storm remembered things, voices, emotions, people. Does it still carry what it took from you?" Mira nodded slowly. "Yes, the storm and I are connected. A part of me still exists inside it. That is why I can hear its thoughts. It is like a sea of memories. The more it travels, the more it grows." Ryan thought about this in silence. "And what about you? Can you survive after what you did?" "I am not sure," she said. "I am something between life and energy now." I can stay for a while, but not forever. My body is human, but my mind is tied to the storm. When it calls again, I will have to go." The words hit him harder than he expected. For the first time, Rian felt a deep sense of loss. He had spent years blaming himself for failing to save her, and now that she was here again, he would lose her once more. He looked down at her hand resting on the bed and said quietly, "You do not have to go alone. There must be a way to keep you connected here. The engineers can build something to stabilize your energy. We can help you." Mira shook her head softly. "The connection is not something to fix, Captain. It is part of what I am. The storm chose me because I stayed behind once before. That choice still matters." The ship's intercom buzzed. The communication officer's voice came through. "Captain, we are picking up a faint transmission on the same frequency as before. It's weak but repeating." Ryan frowned and tapped his wrist device. "Put it through to my terminal." A familiar hum filled the room. Then a soft voice echoed through the speakers. It was Mira's voice, but not the one lying in front of him. It was older, distant, like a recording caught between time. "Ryan," the voice said, "if you are hearing this, the storm has reached you. Do not run from it. Help it understand. Help it remember who we were." The recording ended. Mira looked at the speaker with quiet eyes. "That is the last message I sent before Arden Reach fell. The storm carried it for years. Now it has returned it to you." Rian stood silent for a moment, trying to steady his thoughts. The message confirmed what he already knew. This was no accident. The storm had found them because of him. His voice, his guilt, and his memory had drawn it here. But through that, humanity had been given a second chance. He turned back to Mira. "You said the storm listens to emotion. Maybe it can carry hope too." "It already does," she said. "That is what makes humans different. You create meaning even in loss. The storm learned that from you." The medical bay door opened and the engineer stepped in. "Captain, we have a problem. The power cells that kept the reactor stable are losing charge again. The storm left behind a kind of field that's draining our systems. If it spreads, we could lose propulsion." Ryan stood up at once. "Can it be fixed?" "We're working on it," the engineer said. "But there's another option. The field reacts to Mira's energy pattern. If she connects again, even for a short time, it could reset the system. It might cost her strength, but it would save the ship." Mira looked at Rian. She didn't say anything, but her eyes showed understanding. She had already given so much, yet the ship needed her once more. Ryan's voice was quiet but firm. "No, she's done enough. Find another way." The engineer hesitated. "We might not have time." Mira touched Ryan's arm gently. "Let me do this, Captain. I can still help. If I connect one more time, I can pass the last of the storm's energy back into space. After that, it will be over." Rian met her eyes and saw no fear in them, only calm. "If you do this, what happens to you?" She smiled softly. "I will become what I was meant to be, a bridge. The storm gave me purpose, and now I can give it peace." Ryan closed his eyes for a moment, fighting the ache in his chest. Then he nodded slowly. "All right, but I will be there with you." They walked together toward the reactor chamber again. The ship trembled as the power systems flickered. The crew stepped aside silently as they passed. Everyone knew what Mira was about to do. No one spoke. No one tried to stop her. When they reached the core, the engineer prepared the interface. Mira stepped to the platform and placed her hands on the control ring. The lights flickered blue around her. Ryan stood beside her, watching every movement. She looked at him one last time. "You once said you heard my voice on an old frequency. That voice brought you back here. Now you must promise me something." "What is it?" he asked quietly. "When you return home, tell them what happened. Tell them the storm was not an enemy. Tell them that humanity spoke and the universe listened." Ryan nodded, unable to speak. Mira closed her eyes and activated the link. The room filled with light. The core glowed brighter than ever before. Streams of energy lifted around her like ribbons, swirling and vanishing into the air. The ship steadied as the systems returned to normal. The draining field disappeared from the readings, but Mira's body was fading too. Her form became transparent, her outline made of pure light. She turned toward Rian, her voice calm and warm. "Goodbye, Captain. The storm and I are one now. You are free." Then she was gone. Only a soft pulse of light remained on the reactor platform. The ship was silent for a long time. The crew stood still, staring at the empty space where she had stood. Ryan finally took a deep breath and spoke. Record this in the ship's log. Event code, contact anomaly, human origin. We witnessed communication beyond known science. Later, Ryan returned to the bridge. The stars stretched before him, endless and calm. He opened a new log entry. His voice was quiet but steady. We met something we did not understand. It carried our memories, our pain, our hope, and through one human soul it found peace. Let this record show that humanity is not alone. Even the storms of the universe can learn from us. The crew listened in silence. The ship continued its course toward home. Outside the viewing glass, a faint shimmer of blue light drifted across the stars. It moved gently as if waving farewell. Ryan watched it until it vanished. He stood tall, his heart heavy but free. For years he had carried regret. Now he carried a new truth, that even in the darkest corners of the galaxy, the human spirit could shine bright enough to be heard.